right. How many points does it take to make a line?
Infinite.
There are infinitely many points in a line, but what's the minimum number of points required to make a line? 2. All right. Between those 2 points, they may be perfectly horizontal, they may be perfectly vertical, or they may be oblique from each other, which we call slope. So we got to talk about slope first today. That's our first thing. Tell me what, if anything, you remember about slope from a previous math class. Rise over run, okay? One of the things that's stuck in your brain. Okay, anything else you remember about slope? Ooh, y equals mx plus b. Now that uses slope in it. What part of that is slope? The m, okay? The m is the slope, not the x, but the m part. Okay, so we use m to talk about the slope. That's our variable of choice. What else? Anything else you remember? Oh, there's an x2 in there. Yes, there's some subtraction. Okay, there we go. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's the formula for calculating the slope between 2 points. All right, so let's see what we might do with that. Find y on the line that goes through, and we said it takes 2 points to make a line, so find y on the line that goes through -2, 3, and also through 4y with slope of -3. So what would y have to be? Where would that point be? If you started at -2, 3 and you connected it to 4 something and you had to create a slope of -3. So we're going to use that formula for slope that Julia and others of you remembered, and we're just going to plug in. So where does the -2 go? Which x? x1, all right, which means the 3 is... Ooh, the 3, not, what's the x? The x2 is over here. Yeah, the 3 is the y1, and the y is going to be in the y2 position. So we're going to have -3 is the value of the slope, that's m, and that will be equal to y2 minus y1 over x2, which was 4, minus x1, and when you subtract a number that's already negative, what happens? Yeah, we're going to turn it into a plus. So we end up with -3 over y minus 3 over the number 6. And I would say to solve that problem, I would recommend dropping a 1 as a denominator under the -3 and doing a quick cross multiplication. So that'll give you y minus 3 when you cross multiply and -18. So the answer for y has to be what? -15. Okay, add 3 to both sides. Okay, any questions about that example? All right, that was find y. Let's find both x and y. All right, so find x and y. On the line with the equation 3x plus 4y equals 26, that goes through the following 2 points, x2 and 4y, 4 comma y, x comma 2 and 4 comma y. So find x and y on the line that goes through those 2 points. So the variable x is paired with what number? 2. Where does that 2 go? Okay, into the y, exactly. If the variable x is paired with the number 2, then I can take that number 2 and I can sub it in for the y to figure out what the value of x has to be, because it has to be on that line and it has to satisfy that equation. So I can have 3x plus 4 times the sub value of 2 equals 26, and I can solve that now as an algebra problem. So 3x plus 8 equals 26. To simplify that, you want to subtract 8 from both sides. So 3x would be equal to 18. And to simplify that, you'll divide. So x must have been equal to 6. What similar way would you use, or method would you use, to figure out what y is supposed to be, now that we know that x is? Substitute what for x. All right, so then we're going to repeat the process. And this time we're going to take the 4 and we're going to substitute that for x. So then we'll have now 3, substitute the value of 4 for x, plus 4y, and that still equals 26. Everything's got to equal 26 because it's on this line. That's going to give me 12 plus 4y equals 26, and then we simplify that. So we're going to subtract 12 from both sides. So 4y equals 14, that's subtraction. And then we divide. So y is the fraction 14 over 4, which is reduced to 7 over 2. All right, any questions on slope? Slope is a line going through 2 points. So in the first problem, we had 2 points, but we had one value missing. And in the second problem, we had 2 points, we had 2 values missing. All right, well, now that we've got slope down, now we can talk about lines. So lines are always based on their own formula. So slope has the formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Lines have the formula y minus y1 equals what the slope is that you'd already figured out, x minus x1. Now Wyatt was coming up with y equals mx plus b, which is another form of the line. It's a weaker form though. This is a stronger form. Okay, y equals mx plus b form. Yeah, there's a third form too we'll talk about. But this is the best form to start with. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. We call this point slope form. And it's named point slope form because those are the two things that you plug in. You plug in the point and you plug in the slope, and you have point slope form. Now, there are 3 steps always associated with working out lines. Can you read the red on there okay? Or is that, I can do it in, it's okay. All right, step 1. You want to always find your slope first. That's why I showed you the slope formula. So find the slope m using the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's always the first thing to do. The second thing, once you have the slope, is to plug into the point slope form. Don't skip that step. Some people will try and skip and go right to y equals mx plus b, and they'll skip over this step. You got to plug that into the point slope form first. The third is distribute and simplify. That's when you end up in y equals mx plus b. So distribute and simplify. Those 3 steps, if you follow them, will work every line problem for you. So I'm going to, it's pretty important. Put a box around that. That's something that we could just be able to go back to it if you're ever stuck. Just kind of go back and go, all right, do I have the slope? Have I plugged it in? And then did I distribute? So let's keep those steps handy while we work through this question. All right, write a line through the following 2 points. Through -3, -8, and then connected to 4, -1. So through those 2 points, starting there, starting at -3, -8 in quadrant 3, ending up in quadrant 4, write the line that goes through those. And if you just follow those 3 steps, you should be fine. So the first step is I need to find the slope. So we'll just kind of think of that as step 1. So my slope is going to be m. My m is going to be, okay, somebody try it for me. I'll do the math, you just tell me where the order the numbers go in. Okay, -1 minus 8 over 4 minus -3. All right, -1 minus 8, -9. 4 minus 3 is 7. That slope doesn't reduce because 9 and 7 don't reduce, but I have the slope.
Is it -8 plus?
What?
So plus 8 plus minus 3.
Great. Now what can we do then? Now we can reduce. Okay, number 2. We want to plug into the point slope equation. So we want to make sure that we got everything right, x1 and y1, x2 and y2. So when we plug into y minus y1 m that we just got, x minus x1, so we're going to have y minus, y1 is -8, so it's a double negative. The slope is 1, and x1 is -3. And then step 3 is distribute and simplify. What do I need to distribute? The 1, which isn't very exciting. To distribute a 1, we just have x plus 3. And to simplify, we're going to subtract what number from both sides? The 8. All right, the reason we subtract the 8 is so that we can be y equals, we can have y by itself, and we'll have x minus 5. So we're subtracting, and now this is in y equals mx plus b form. And that's the end of that. So started with 2 points, walk your way through those steps, and you've got the equation that you're finished with. Any questions on that one? Okay, let's try another one. Find the general line through -4, +5, and through 4, 3. What makes this question just slightly different than the last one? There's one word change. The word general. All right, general, it has to do with our step 3. It doesn't change anything else, but it has to do with our step 3. All right, so let's do steps 1 and 2. Step 1, we want to find our slope. So m is going to equal 3 minus 5 over 4 minus -4. 3 minus 5. Okay, I've made enough mistakes today, so am I doing it? Am I okay?
I heard a -4, but I didn't see
Minus -4. Okay, so I'm okay. -2 over 8, which reduces to -1/4. All right, so we have our slope. Second step is use the point slope form. So y minus y1 equals m and x minus x1. So my y1 is 5. My slope is -1/4. And my x1 is -4, which will become +4. All right. Now we need to find the general line. Distributing is still the same as well. Okay, so you're going to distribute your -1/4. So we're going to take that and distribute that to both sets of parentheses. Y minus 5 equals -1/4 x minus 1 when you distribute. Okay, here's where general form of a line is slightly different than just a regular y equals mx plus b line. In the question before, we wanted to get y by itself, so we could have y equals mx plus b. A general form of the line doesn't have y by itself. Say that again? It does not have x by itself. That's a good thought though. What it does is it clears everything from the left side and makes it equal to 0. Okay, that's general form. Clearing everything from the left side and making equal to 0. So what can I do? How do I move things so that I'm getting this equal to 0? What should I move first? I'll give you a hint. Oh, okay. I'm going to add 1 first. That would be, but we could have done it in either order. So that's going to give me y minus 4, and I still have negative 1/4 x. I want to make that equal to 0. And so I'm going to add that to both sides. So I'll add positive 1/4 x. So now I've got positive 1/4 x plus a y minus a 4, and it's equal to 0. That's the first part of getting it into general form, is that you clear out the left side and make it equal to 0. All right, the second part of getting it into general form is to make sure that there are no decimals or fractions in the problem. All right, so what I want you to do, I think this would help, is make some kind of note in your notes for when you have your open note quiz. And so it's written down, general form. You want to set the left side to 0, equal to 0. And you want to make sure that there's no decimals or fractions. All right, so what is the fraction in the problem right now? 1/4? Okay, how do I get rid of 1/4 so it's not there anymore? Multiply it by its reciprocal, okay, which is just going to, or the denominator only, which would be the number 4. So we're going to multiply everything in this problem by the number 4, all the parts, the first part, the middle part, the last part, and even the 0. What that will do is 4 times 1/4 just gives me 1x. 4 times y minus 16 equals 0, and that's called general form of a line. So if the instructions ask you to put it into general form, you need to clear out the one side to 0 and then make sure there's no fractions or decimals. All right, last example. We're going to finish early today. That's nice. All right. A home valued presently or now at $500,000 okay, depreciates, that means it decreases in value by $12,000 per year. Now, that's not what you want to happen to your home. You want your home to gain value, but perhaps we're in a recession or something like that, which happened when you guys were kids 10 years ago. So we're going to say that this home is depreciating in value. How long will it take to be valued at $350,000? All right. One way to do this problem is to start with $500,000 on your calculator and start rapidly subtracting 12,000 over and over and over again until you get down to 350. That's one way to do it. Okay, and I'll tell you that it's not going to work out evenly. You're going to skip over 350,000. Like at one time you'll end up at 360,000, and the time after that you'll be at 348, and you've just missed it entirely. All right, so that's one way you could do it. Another way to do it is to think of this like a line with through 2 points. So let me help you think of it that way. Time is always the x variable. Any word problem you have that mentions time, months, days, years, weeks, whatever, decades, it's always the x variable. So I usually try and get myself organized by making a little table. So if time is the x variable, where do I put 500,000? If time is the x variable, where do I put, which column do I put the 500,000 in? The y, right? And that is presently. So what's the value of the x for time presently or now? Well, okay, but how much time has gone by? If you're talking about now, it's 0, okay, right now, no time has gone by. We could figure out, it's pretty easy, in 1 year, how much will the house be worth? 488,000. Okay, that's a subtraction. Now you could keep doing this over and over and over again until you hopefully get to 350. All right, but we're gonna imagine that we are trying to figure out what matches up to 350. So use your 3 steps from before. Create a slope, create a point slope line, and we'll see if we can use that. Okay, so here's our slope. M equals y2, which is 488,000, minus y1, which is the 500,000, over 1 minus 0. That slope turns out to be negative 12,000, which should make sense to you because it's going down by that much every year, so it's negative. Then we write a line. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And we plug in the slope we just found along with the y1 and the x1 variables. So y minus 500,000 for my x1 equals the slope of negative 12,000 times x minus 0 for the x1. And I distribute. So I get y minus 500,000 equals negative 12,000 x. And that's far enough for me to be able to answer the $350,000 question. Because where do I sub the 350,000 into? Not x. X is a time. And so 350,000 is a y value. So I'm going to put the 350,000 right there. So 350,000 will sub in for y. Minus 500,000 equals the negative 12,000 times the x. So that's negative 150,000 when you subtract equals negative 12,000x, and I can divide that, and you could use your calculator to divide negative 12,000. So 2 negatives make a positive, and I end up with what number? Anybody type it in? 12.5. 12.5 what? Years.